One of the joys of gardening is growing something yourself from seed. It's all very well buying plants already grown, but there's nothing as satisfying as actually creating them from seed yourself. And today we're going to look at a few of those. Just selecting out a few packets, and you've got certain plants here. Got a wonderful system on the back of these packets. It gives you all the information you need. It tells you when you can sow indoors and when you can sow outdoors direct. So some of them will need starting off indoors. Some of them you can sow right out in straight away early in the season, such as cornflower and nigella. That's loving a mist. That can be sown directly into the soil. But today we're actually going to be looking at starting a few things off in pots, and then pricking them out and growing them on, and then ready to plant out in May. So off we go down to potting bench. So we've arrived down at our potting area down on the nursery, and we've got our seeds with us, and we've got our compost, and we've got our seed trays, and we're going to start sowing the seeds. Now the first thing we're going to want is a good seed sowing compost. Now we use Westland's John Innes. I prefer to use John Innes. It's always consistent. It's got a soil element in it, which tends to make it easier to re-wet if it dries out, and it also helps with buffering so you don't get wild pH springs. So first thing we do is fill the pots. So first thing to do is if you've got sensitive skin, wear gloves. And also, if the compost is dry, this compost is not, it's quite moist. In fact, I would recommend you probably, if you've got dry compost, wet it first a little bit so that it's you're not pushing up dust into the atmosphere. And if you are getting dusty compost, then you really want to make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area and not breathing in the motes of dust from the compost. Now here at our potting bench here, we've got one that we've made ourselves because we do a lot of potting. And we've got a nice big lip on it here. But if you're restricted for space, what you can do is use one of these, which will fit on a tabletop. And it's got a lip at the front there, and it's got a nice high back, which you can rise the compost up against it there. And it's good for a domestic setting to use one of those. So now we're just going to fill the seed tray with compost, and we've got various different seed trays. We've got this big one, we've got a half seed tray, but you can use pots as well if that's all you've got. If you're reusing old pots, just give them a quick wash out, ideally with some fairy liquid, and just let them dry off, and then use them for the potting process. That's fine. Right, so here we go. I'm just going to fill that. It's already got drainage holes in the bottom, so get it over loosely, and then just give it a bit of a shake out level. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a pot to just press it down, just firm the compost so we've got a nice smooth seed bed there. Just press the corners down. So that's what we want to end up. Now there's one I've just filled for the with one of the half seed trays as well. So the next job we need to do is just go and water it first, because if we water it later with small seeds on them, we can wash the seeds all over the place. So what we're going to do is water the compost and get it wet first before we actually do the seed sowing. So we're just going to set them down on the floor, and then what we'll do is we're going to get the watering can. Now it's important, when you first start pouring, it'll come out in a bit of a splurge, and that's when you can upset the compost level. So we're actually going to start tipping it away from the plants until the rows of water is running nicely, and then we're going to move it over the seed trays backwards and forwards. And you can still see it taking up water nicely. It's starting to pool up a bit. So I'll just hold off a second, let that drain in. Okay, and then we'll give it another go, make sure we've got it really nice and soaked. And I think we're there, that's plenty wet enough. Okay, so here's two of our seed packs that we've brought down. Now, this is lobelia, which you'll use in your hanging baskets or for edging plants during the summertime. And it basically says, you've got great instructions on both the backs of these seed packets here. So it says sow indoors January to April, and then we're going to plant it out May, June, when the fear of frost has gone. Okay, so we're going to start that one off. That is incredibly small seed. There's 2,000 seeds. It tells you how many there are on the packet. 2,000 seeds in that small packet there. Here we've got Cosmos, and again, very handy little information on there. So the pink is sow indoors, the blue you can sow this direct outside, but you need to wait till April, May to do that. And then if you've sown it indoors, then you can transplant it and plant it out where it's green, May, June time, and then it's going to flower through the latter part of the summer. So that's the cosmos. Okay, so first things first, labels. Very important to label what you're doing, unless you really know your seedlings when they come up. But if you might have 3 different types of cosmos, one pink, one red, one white, or one variegated like that, and you need to know which ones are which. So label up first. There's my label written up, ready to go. I'll just put that to one side for a moment. Open the pack of Crystal Palace seed, lobelia seed, and I'm going to try and just, if you're interested, to keep the packet intact. Don't rip through the instructions, because you can keep these back and then you've got them if you need to refer to them a bit later in the season. So I've gone so close to the top, just need to open that up. Right, inside that we have a smaller packet. Okay, so that's the retail packet, and in here, this tiny little pack, 2,000 seeds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty those into the palm of my hand. I'm just going to clean the palm, back and palm of my hand, and here we go. It's like dust. Tiny seed. I'm just going to shake the rest of it out over there. See it there? That's 2,000 potential plants in there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a pinch of it, and then we're just going to move across the top of the compost, just evenly going backwards and forwards. I still feel it rubbing between my fingers there. Got to there, carry on. So we're trying to aim for as even as coverage as possible. If you don't get them even, if you sort of end up with dense areas of sowing, then when the seedlings come up, if they're really tight together in certain areas, then it can lead to issues with something called damping off, which is a disease which gets into the seedlings, where there's not much air movement between each of the seedlings. So you want it nicely spread out over the surface of the tray that we're doing. So I've gone one way across the whole tray, so this time I'm going to go back the other way, and that will hopefully even out anything that we missed as we went through 90 degrees. And we're nearly there. So now, third way, I'm just going to go across horizontal, diagonally to that corner. Right, we're about there. So that was it. Get the rest of them off and into there and label up. Now it says on the packet there, cover and keep warm at 15 to 21 degrees. So you can start them off in an airing cupboard. That's really nice. That's a really nice warm temperature. Or you can start them off on a sunny windowsill. But to keep the seedlings dry, these tops are very useful as well. Got a little bit of a vent in there to stop the air getting stale inside, but it will stop the compost drying out too much. So that just sits on top, and then that's ready to go to wherever you're going to start germinating them from. And they should pop up within, well, it will depend on which seeds you're sowing, but anyway, they were between 7 and 21 days. So that's those, and then we've got the cosmos to do as well, which we will have a look at in a second. So I'm down to the inner packet on the cosmos, and I'm just going to open that up, and I've already shaken them down to the bottom so that I didn't lose them, because it's quite tight between the two sheets. When I opened the packet, I didn't want any to fall out. So right, let's just open that up. Now this time I'm going to pour out, and I think there were 60 seeds in this packet. Very different looking to the lobelia, which I'll show you in a moment. Just tap them all out. There's two more in there. I'll get those out in a minute. But there's the seed this time. You can see very different to the lobelia seed, which looked like dust. Right, so this time I'm going to throw, so same sort of thing, I'm just going to go one way and then the other, trying to get them as even as possible. And again, I'm just using, I have seen people use, fold a piece of paper in half and tip the seeds into a piece of paper and then just tap the end of it so it just gets the seeds coming out across it like a depositor. But where you'll see that when I've finished with this, hopefully the spread is fairly even. So you can see I'm getting towards the end now. I've only got about 5 or 6 seeds left on it. Whether you can focus in on that. So I'm a bit bare in that area. So just put a few down in that section there. And then I had a couple left in this here, but I've got a reasonable spread on there. I'm happy with that. Oh, there's 10 more seeds in there, not just a few. So let's go over again into those areas that are less densely sown. And that's it. Now I'm just going to cover them with a little bit of soil, which I'll show you in a sec. So just referring back to the seed packet, it says sow 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'm just going to put about 1/4 of an inch of compost over the top of that now. And here's our moist compost that we started with. Now you could use a sieve. If you've got a sieve, you can go backwards and forwards with a sieve. I'm just going to use a pot here, which has got nice big holes at the bottom of it. So again, going 2 ways. That's the first lot on. I put a little bit more than that. Right, that's all covered over nicely now. And we are going to put the label in. There it is. And again, if you're using these ink pens, they do have a habit of being, if they're in the sunlight, they do tend to fade. Pencil is really good. A soft pencil, leaded pencil is worth, it'll last forever. So use soft leaded pencil if you can. But with this stuff, to stop it fading in the sunlight, I'm just going to push it slightly into the compost at the edge there. And then that'll keep it hidden from the sunlight, but I can always flick it out if I need to know what it is. And then just the lid. And we're going to move that to a nice light, bright area to germinate them. Okay, so that's our lobelia, and I've already brought the cosmos in. I'm sitting in a nice, bright, sunny area. We're inside a polytunnel here, but you could be doing this in your airing cupboard where it's warm. If you're doing it in your airing cupboard, as soon as the seedling's up, you need to move them out into a light position so they don't become wan and etiolated. If you're doing it on your kitchen windowsill, that's fine. That's perfect. Or a nice sunny windowsill where it can get warm. Not too hot, but warm is great. And in here with polytunnel. But because the polytunnel's open, it could, on a frosty night, it could get chilly. So we do actually use a bit of fleece here, and we keep an eye on the forecast. If the forecast is going to drop down, we'll cover the whole lot over with fleece. So if it's going to go under 10 degrees, we'll drop the fleece over the top. So here are some seedlings that we sowed last week. You can see we've sowed these in pots rather than in seed trays. We've used old pots. We just wash those out, and you can see all the seedlings coming up really nicely in here now. And need to give them these first leaves that come up are called the cotyledons, and what we're going to do is wait till the first true leaves are there, and then that's the first, and the next set of leaves that come out will probably look different to the cotyledons, and that's the time that we're going to move them on a stage, and we'll look at that in a couple of weeks' time. One more thing, just protect from slugs and protect from mice. Mice are a big thing in the inside areas, so you might want to get some mice traps, or you can set them up on something with an overhang and away from a wall where the mice can't get onto them. So if you put them, overhanging table or something like that is fine. Good, there we go. That's seed sowing for you.